James. Your pal James. We have to bring before.
Yeah.
Wait, you're saying something good.
Yes, they were saying.
But we could also, I mean, we could do that, we could also just go.
Yeah. Just one.
Thursday. And that covered everything else. My students just completely gave me the hardest test. And I just take those things. I mean, this is what a study kind of course. Still good. Sometimes it happens. No, it just requires them. It wouldn't be hard. I think they don't know. I give them something and I tell them what happened. So they need to write it down and then that's what they study. But I think they go because it's different readings and hours. So I think they just go to readings and hours. And you know, write down the answers under the See slide 5, and out of the 4 choices, which one do you agree with? And then you try well, it requires them and it's different. That's the reverse thing what happened this time. Totally reverse.
Okay, let me go for it.
Yeah, several were telling me this time.
It's not easy.
I know,
Writing is not.
So you're gonna be in Vienna from October to when?
That's me too. That's me too. You're drained.
Yeah, I just don't know. I could go to Argentina. I would like to go. Which is why I
Good evening. My name is Ryan McKinney, and I am a first-year student in the PhD Theater and Performance program here at the Graduate Center. And on behalf of the Booth Award Committee, our co-chairs, and the DTSA, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 2019 Edwin Booth Award Ceremony honoring choreographer, author, performer, teacher, and curator Ishmael Houston Jones. I am not supposed to be up here talking to you. The person that is supposed to be up here talking to you is Ashley Marinaccio, and Ashley is the second vice president of the Doctoral Theater Students Association and the co-chair of tonight's event alongside Janet Werther. After all of her hard work and planning, Ashley is extremely sick tonight and cannot be here. So she has prepared some words to open tonight's event, and it is my pleasure to share them with you in her absence. The Edwin Booth Award Ceremony is an annual DTSA event. The doctoral students in our program nominate and elect an individual or organization that has had a significant impact on theater and performance in New York. Now in its fourth decade, the award has provided a unique opportunity to bring the professional and academic theater communities together. And tonight we are excited to say that we continue that mission. Ishmael Houston Jones's performance works and curatorial projects attend to the urgent materiality of the sexed, raced, desiring body on stage. As an educator, Houston Jones has passed down improvisational techniques and practices that are both artistically experimental and that helped maintain and perpetuate experimental dance during periods of embodied and economic crisis. Through the 2009 restaging of Them and his curatorial and choreographic work on the Dance Space Platform 2016, Lost and Found, Houston Jones has ensured that a new generation of dance artists inherit the kinesthetic legacy of the early AIDS epidemic's impact on the New York dance community. Simultaneously, he has nurtured the development of new work by young dance artists, especially those who are queer and/or of color. It is our greatest pleasure to honor him as our 37th Edwin Booth Award recipient. Tonight's ceremony is made possible by the gracious support from the Doctoral Students Council, the Martin E. Siegel Theater Center, and the Doctoral Theater Students Association. We would like to give special thanks to our professors, Marvin Carlson, Peter Eckersall, Jean Graham Jones, Erica Lynn, and David Savrin for their generous support. We would also like to thank our incredible co-chair, Janet Werther, and the Booth Award Committee, Jenny Youssef, Rujal Dong, Corey Tamler, Taylor Colbert, Mayurakshi Sen, Kira Bono, Christine Snyder, and Fabian Escalona. To start our evening, Miguel Gutierrez wanted to be here tonight, but unfortunately he could not. He prepared a video tribute for Ishmael that we are excited to share with you now.
Well, Sisi Noemi, Sisi Noemi, Sisi Noemi, Sisi. Oh! Bueno, Sisi Noemi, Sisi Noemi. Sisi Noemi, Sisi Noemi, Sisi Noemi.
Thank you so much all for being here. You'll be seeing a lot of me. I'm sort of emceeing. I am Janet Werther, that co-chair that you've heard so much about. Our first performance of the evening is The Sad Wolf by Yvonne Meyer, performed by Emily Wexler.
Well, I'm digging my grave. I'm digging my grave. Tomorrow hell will surely pay for all the love that I never gave. Oh, I'm digging my grave. Oh, I'm digging my grave. When the hole is made with pick and spade, and all the debts never repaid. Oh, how I wish that I could have stayed, but the hole is made. Oh, the hole is made. When the hole is shallow, where I must lay, the hole is shallow, that's okay. 'Cause I'll have peace on my final day, down in that
Band and the Jazzy Double Dutch Jumpers. That's a great show. And it went over 2 weekends. But this is a group of dance companies and performers that represented the mainstream, except for some of the newcomers, like at that time the Rocksteady Crew and the Jazzy Jumpers. It was the mainstream of black dance in America at that time, from the traditional West African dance companies of Charles Moore, Chuck Davis, and Arthur Hall, to the classical modernist dance companies of Alvin Ailey, Rod Rogers, Elio Pomare, and Philadanco. Interestingly, included in the evening were the popular dance traditions from the club to the street, from Lindy Hoppers to early break dancers with the Rocksteady Crew. The group that Ishmael Houston Jones pulled together for the first Parallels changed our perceptions of what the mainstream could be and what the alternative experimental scene could be. They changed the perceptions of those two spaces for those more has been added since. These were the techniques that I was trained in as a young dancer. Eric Hawkins was working at the time with what came to be called release technique. This form you responded to. This was an aesthetically looser form with a different kind of rigor than the other three. This bit of information helped me to understand the parallel worlds of Black America and of new dance that you were tapping into. As a 17-year-old dancer in 1982, aged out of the school that I had been training in, I went looking for something new. And I found myself at Eric Hawkins' studio. I was doing a class the way I knew to do class, which was I was in all black and my hair was pulled back and I was ready to take class. And we go on the floor and we begin to do work on the floor and I'm reaching and I mean it. Everything I do is really intense and meaning it. And the teacher kept saying, relax, let go, just, let your head go. And I'm going, and like, she's like, don't reach so much, don't work, breathe. And I'm going, and finally I started to just kind of, what I, at the time, was like, I'm just flopping, I'm not dancing, I'm not, and it was, when revelations happen, but they don't really hit you till much later in life. So it was a moment that terrified me and let me know that maybe I wasn't looking for something as different as I thought, or at least not at 17. I wasn't quite ready. Well, I wasn't ready. My somatic self, my ALE-trained somatic self, wasn't quite ready for that particular journey. I went on it later in a different way. But when I was able to come back, there was a space that had been carved out, that you had carved out, that you and that cohort from the 1980s and on had carved out. And I'm grateful for that space. The dance world is grateful for that space. The Black dance world is infinitely more diverse because of that space, and I thank you.
Next up we have Prayer Rant by Mayfield Wicks.
we all agreed that you were a total asshole but a lovely human. You were a pain in the ass. You were a pain in the ass as a student. But you're a good kid.
Tell me about dancing in the jail cell.
I had made this. Sorry. I had made this late night cereal that David, Lindsay, Bear, and I had written together at name that we did at DTW. Old name. In the 90s, and we had guest stars, and Ish guest starred, and he played Old Man Winter. And there was a scene in that he and I were both in a jail cell for some reason, and it was said the lights come up, and George, who was me, and Old Man Winter are slow dancing in the jail cell. And we never really rehearsed a lot for the we rehearsed like once for the thing. And when we were doing it in performance, the lights came up, and for slow dancing, he just like threw himself, like all his weight on me. And I was like, oh, this like, and I thought, you're like, oh, you're dancing something, you have to be nice. And then suddenly I was just like holding him up, basically, which was a huge lesson. And but don't tackle me yet, because I want to tell a story. And then, is that you?
Yeah.
And then, but there was a long, there's a history of us dancing together when we did a duet at DNA, old name, where Ish, we were in suits, and then Ish, like underneath the suits, you have to wear frilly lady girl panties, and I think I thought I was too cool, so I wore a jockstrap and a garter belt. But we would have lots of stuff, and again, it was like you put your whole weight on someone, and really like, even if it's not about picking them up, it's like giving your whole body to the thing you do, and that's super important to me. Okay.
Last two. Is your name Dan Safer? Is your full name Daniel Safer? Do you prefer to be called Dan? Do you consider yourself a New Yorker? Do you like living in Boston? Are you charmed by the people of Boston? Do you feel like you have some unfinished business in New York? Do you have anyone special here tonight? Is it me? Have we been friends for a long time? Have we seen a lot of each other in recent years? Would you like that to change? Are you a vegan? Are you a vegetarian? Do you like to tell people that you are a vegetarian? Do you do CrossFit? So you don't tell people you do CrossFit. Do you define yourself as a rabble-rouser? Do you define yourself as a people person? Do you want love? Do you want love? Do you want companionship? Do you want a little bit of quiet and peace? Okay, this is going to be my last question. Do you watch Game of Thrones?
Up next, we'll have some words from Judy Hesse Taylor of Dance
I'm so moved to be here tonight to honor Ishmael Houston Jones. Ishmael is economical with his speech, his writing, his movements, and his actions. He leaves much unsaid. But when he does say something and then says it again, and then maybe many weeks later says it yet again, I pay close attention. And I must say we've created some pretty incredible trouble together. What has emerged from our conversations over the years are two Ishmael-curated dance space project platforms, Parallels in 2012, and Lost and Found, Dance, New York, HIV/AIDS, Then and Now in 2016, co-curated with Will Rawls. I began designing a new inquiry-based curatorial project of dance space in 2008 entitled The Platforms. They were conceived as exhibitions that unfold over time. I set out to work with artists and choreographers as curators and collaborators in order to transform artists' research into questions and create a different kind of framework for curating live performance. Ishmael approached me in 2010, just after the launch of the first 4 platforms, which have been curated by Ralph Lemon, Juliette Mapp, Chajal Harrell, and Melinda Ring. Ish wanted to revisit a program he had curated, a dance-based project in 1982, referenced earlier, entitled Parallels, asking the question, what is Black dance? The result, 30 years later in 2012, was 8 weeks of robust, radical performance by an intergenerational group of over 45 artists of African descent. Then, in 2014, Ish and I met for coffee, and he told me he had found a zine dedicated to his dear friend John Byrne, a downtown choreographer who had died of AIDS. We talked about maybe another platform focusing on the 1980s dance scene in the East Village. Next time we met, we talked about John, again. I said, sounds like John is speaking to you, and we better do something. This became Platform 2016 Lost and Found. This time Ishmael said, I don't want to do it alone. I'd like to bring in a younger voice. And he invited Will Rawls to take the journey with him. We engaged with more than 100 choreographers, poets, performance artists, musicians, additional guest curators, and actually collaborate with the CUNY Grad Center. And that's how we hooked up with Janet Werther, Jamie Sharon Cohen, and the great people here at the Grad Center. The platform connected people across time, across age, across disciplines, across race. It connected the living and the dead. During the 8 weeks of Lost and Found, the platform became a ritual site for community grieving. We've spent a lot of time together during both of these curatorial projects, and I have learned a lot about Ishmael as an artist, a thinker, and friend. His artistic and curatorial practices mirror one another. He embraces ambiguity and resists oversimplification or easy categorization. I have often acknowledged that the platforms employ choreographic practices as curatorial strategies, including the use of structured improvisation. Ishmael is one of the great improvisers in dance. In his curation, he embraces complexity and open-ended questions, allowing for multiple voices, perspectives, ideas, and histories. For Ish, being present and paying careful attention is a radical ethical life practice. Ishmael, thank you for your generosity, your sensitivity, your mischievous appreciation for deep gossip, your loyalty, your laugh, and your ongoing care for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Epilogue by Emily Wexler. Sorry, I keep popping out of my shirt today. I don't actually care what size I am, I just don't want to have to buy new clothes. So now I'm going to be speaking for myself, for Ish. And this was actually really hard for me to write something for, because I've known Ishmael since I was 21 years old, I think. What I wrote down is that at 21 years old, I had recently catapulted out of the closet like a human cannonball of rainbows and nervous energy. And that was the first summer that I took an improvisation class with Ishmael Houston Jones. It was at the American Dance Festival, and it was like nothing I was accustomed to. We began each class with automatic writing, and during a period of internal turmoil and zealous desire to belong, to get it right, I was told by Ish to simply keep going, even if it didn't make sense to me, that there was nothing I might say or do in this automatic writing exercise that was wrong. The freedom was intoxicating, but also unnerving. I was unmoored, and I've never been the same. I'd like to share with you all my personal anecdotes about Ishmael Houston Jones, and especially the excess of affect that I feel as we honor him today with the 2019 Booth Award. This is an award honoring, as you heard earlier, an individual or organization that has had a significant impact on theater and performance in New York. It's also an award that has typically been reserved for a playwright with a capital P. Not always, but usually. Today, however, we're giving this award to a choreographer, an improviser, and a dancer whose impact on performance in New York has surely been significant in the largest sense of that word. And it's also been significant, Ishmael has been significant to me personally. I recognize, however, that my personal anecdotes are precious to me because they're personal, and my time here is justly limited. You've seen plenty of me, and you'd like to get upstairs to the food that we have waiting for you. So I'll indulge in only a couple. In addition to my first improv class with Ishmael, which was also co-taught with Yvonne, I can't remember if they did 3 weeks and 3 weeks or a couple days a week and a couple days a week. But during the same summer, I also took my first formal contact improvisation classes. And there was one evening at an open jam where I was approached by Ish for a duet. And to be honest, I was completely unsure how to express my interest in that dance and how to negotiate consent without physically strong-arming the nascent duet and ruining the moment. I also learned from Ishmael that I'm afraid of my own strength. He had us in one class or audition or something slap one another across the face, and I had such a hard time doing it because I realized I was afraid of how strong I might be. So in this contact moment, was touch, or this open jam moment, was contact okay? Was it even desirable, or was it off limits? And furthermore, why would Ishmael Houston Jones want to dance with me? I was a nobody. I was 21 and I was a mess. But as we were improvising, there wasn't time for me to indulge in social or kinesthetic anxiety. I just had to go for it and let myself be called into his orbit. I tried to mirror his movement, but also his self-possessed sense of calm. And it's interesting hearing Dan Safer talk about Ishmael launching his weight on himself, because one of the things that I've always been most unnerved but also most intrigued by with Ishmael is his unequivocal and direct gentleness. It's always also been his commitment to teaching, curating, and making performance as a way of passing on cultural memory and building community. That's what I most admire. As a performer and performance maker in the downtown New York scene for longer than I've been alive, Ishmael Houston Jones is today a living repository of the otherwise all but lost cultural memory of the early AIDS crisis and its toll on queer arts communities in New York City. As a curator, teacher, and mentor, he has done and continues to do critical work, not merely to revivify the memories of those we've lost, but also to endow young artists, queer artists, artists of color, queer artists of color, with our histories, that we might carry those histories into the futures of our own unique expressions. I first became really aware of Ish as a holder of queer cultural memory and the Ghost of AIDS when I saw the revival of his 1985 masterwork, Them. I'm sure that Wagner would not necessarily recognize them as a Gesamtkunstwerk. I can't speak German, but you know what I mean. But despite whether or not Wagner would recognize it, this is surely a total work of art. As I lose my place. Poetry, music, and dance intertwine in Them and also collide. Seeing that performance, I saw my friends, my colleagues, and my peers reaching up to check their lymph nodes for signs of a mysterious, sometimes invisible disease. I was born in 1985, and my friends were the same age as the friends of Ishmael that I could never know, who were given their terminal sentences in 1985, or earlier, or a little later. So this really broke something open in me. But it wasn't until I was teaching them this past fall, more than a decade after the revival, that I was able to stitch together language for the poignancy of the scene in which a performer wrestles on a mattress with an actual dead goat. My students were really troubled by this and trying to explain why it was important, why they couldn't just look away, gave me new language for what that scene is doing. The goat is a scapegoat, perhaps. A scapegoat on the bed of a gay man. There's anger at loss and death and the loss of intimacy through scapegoating. The goat is not an accidental prop used for shock value. It's full and fraught with meaning. One more anecdote, another decade-based jump cut. So 10 years after I'd first danced with Ish at ADF, when he was co-curating the 2016 dance-based platform that Judy spoke so eloquently about, I was fortunate to join that project through the CUNY Center for Humanities as a research fellow, through this PhD program, through my work here in this building. I was asked in support of that performance platform to create dossiers on the lives and works of artists who died of AIDS or AIDS-related causes. There was one person who we're not sure if they were HIV positive, but the trauma of the period seemed so pertinent, Greer Langton, in her inability to continue on after that period. It was an archival and dramaturgical task unlike any other I've encountered before or since. What could I learn about the lives and works of these artists? What could I glean about who they were and how they lived and loved and played and made art and community that would be interesting or useful to my peers as they created new works out of the legacies that they already unknowingly carried in their bodies? Because one of the most interesting things that I learned doing that research is just how much we as contemporary dancers do carry in terms of technical practice, compositional techniques, and stylistic investments from this so-called lost generation. I spent hours poring over archives at Harvard and Bobst Library, but this became more than a research exercise. Rather, I like to think of it as Ish introducing me to some of his friends or members of his community, his ghosts, and then I became friends with these ghosts. And then I tried to make the material so that I could pass them on as well. As the giver of Lois Lurie's eponymous book says, quote, "The worst part of holding the memories is not the pain, it's the loneliness of it. Memories need to be shared." It was an honor to have Ishmael share his memories with me. I also had moments beyond traditional archives. I was invited to his home, where he shared a personal collection of materials by John Byrne, and where I glimpsed not only pictures and performance posters, but an uncashed grant check. This has stayed with me so deeply. A testament to the chaos of the time and the very real tensions between supporting a friend's artistic vision and his life as it came to an untimely close, supporting his material needs as he continued performing rather than convalescing. And when Ish told me about the uncashed check, there was a little couldn't even get him to sign it. It's still live, it's still fraught. So this was the performance context in which Ishmael's community relied on structured improvisation, a context in which a choreographer might be directing from a hospital room, a context in which the bulk of a rehearsal time might be spent with a choreographer in the dressing room scratching his psoriasis, a context in which bathing your sick friend and showing up to his rehearsals were all part of what it meant to work together and to be in community. This was the context in which Yvonne Meyer and John Byrne and Ishmael turned really hard turn toward releasing in terms of the technique they were working with as their primary physical practice, a context in which conserving your energy while flinging yourself headlong across the room was imperative, whether you were the ill party or the person who might sustain injuries from carrying the ill party, your friend, to the toilet, just as easily as you might sustain injuries from the risks of your dancing. I'll end with another quote from The Giver. Quote, "And here in this room, all alone, I re-experience them again and again. It is how wisdom comes and how we shape our future." But thanks to Ishmael Houston Jones, neither he nor we are alone as witnesses to memory, to the memories of those we've lost to illness and to oppression. Rather, here in this room and in all the rooms where Ish creates, facilitates, and performs, we together re-experience these memories and beloved ghosts again and again. And this is how wisdom comes, and it is how we shape our future. And I, for one, am grateful. So now, if I could have Ishmael Houston Jones join me, it is my honor and pleasure to present to him the 2019 Edwin Booth Award in recognition of his outstanding contributions to theater, dance, and performance from the Doctoral Theater Students Association at the CUNY Graduate Center.
When Janet and Ash first contacted me, I'd never heard of this award, so it's really cool getting an award that you've never heard of. And I'd like to apologize I once referred to it as the John Wilkes Booth Award. I totally did. I'm really sorry I did that. It's totally overwhelming, and it's great to see all my children out here. I was kind of an amazing surprise. Shock, actually. So, what's next?
So now Jean Graham Jones, our distinguished faculty member, is going to join you. We're going to pull out some chairs if Ryan and Margaret would help me. We're going to have a little conversation.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, everybody. How much time do we have? Janet?
Max 20.
Okay.
Cool. We can do that.
We can do that. Okay, I'm gonna probably shorten my comments because I, like Janet, I have a lot of things to say. But I'm gonna get to some questions, but then I really want to open it up to everybody. And I really love that T-shirt because one of my Ishmael anecdotes is I remember being at the theater at La Mama, and you came running up the aisle and ripped off your T-shirt to show me your scar.
I'm very proud of it.
It was, yeah, you should be. You survived it. I realized that, unlike Janet, I wasn't born in 1985. 1985 was when I first saw Ishmael perform. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Portland, Oregon.
Oh, wow. All right.
CVA.
Ah, cool.
And then in '86, I saw you in Los Angeles at Lace. And I think Lace was really, that was a revelation for me to have you. There were multiple performances there that I still just have so present in my mind. I think of, talking about them, I'm thinking about Dead, your solo piece, and how I had lost 3 of my first theater directors to AIDS in Portland, Oregon, just before that. And it just was like such a resonating piece for me, and sad. And also the whole idea that, you know, it's not just the personal is political, the political is personal.
I made it as a celebration for my 30th birthday, though.
Yeah, well, okay. That was also the show where, if I remember correctly, because in the intervening years I've seen pieces where you came out in the dark and crawled over the audience naked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was one of my favorite, and something that hasn't been mentioned, is how Ishmael experiments with so many things, some of which you've heard about already. But one is the sensory. And Mothi Din Din, it's still in my brain forever.
I probably couldn't do that now. There are probably laws against that.
Yeah. Do you want to like quickly describe it?
It's a piece about, it was relatives, and it was a piece about memory and memory of family, and I started the piece in the dark, scattering mothballs in the audience, so the audience would smell the piece before they saw it. So.
Right, it was the darkness, but you also heard him with this rattling thing, and the balls going across the floor, and you think they're marbles, and he's going, here, Mothi, Din, Din. And then it gets increasingly like, Mothi, Din, Din. And about that point, you start smelling them. You're, oh, this is little Genesis. Yeah, okay. And then, of course, the piece with your mom. And where
it's
you,
the same piece, actually.
Yeah, I know. It's all one of the same piece. It was in the second half, and you went into the audience, you picked her up, took her on stage, which then Julie Dash made into a short film,
right,
which is really beautiful, too. But I remember your mom, in the film, she dyes eggs.
Yeah.
As I recall, she snapped beans.
No, she died
She was
eggs.
dyeing eggs?
She died
Okay,
eggs.
see what memory does? Even in my body. And just the conversation and commentary, which is another thing that I find really interesting and wonderful about Ishmael's performances. He's a fantastic solo performer. I adore his solo performance work, but he's also a really attentive companion on stage. It's something, even when I come across the odd video from PS 122 million years ago, when you're like Zelig, you pop up in a Carmelita Tropicana show, and you pop up in another one, and suddenly there's Mark Russell doing improv, which kind of blew my mind to remember, is that you're always, your attention is there. There's just that, people were already speaking about how he can hurl himself across the stage on top of someone, but he's also super attentive to it. And you just see it in everything, I think, that he does on stage. And Linda Austin is the person who introduced us. So
Wow.
Old downtown person, East Village, and Movement Research Performance Journal, which I want to give a shout out to, because
Yay.
I do not think that theater and performance scholars pay enough attention to movement research and the work that's done, and that journal. And it's, the final thing I want to mention is having seen you in Sebastian Calderon and Sean Donovan's piece, The Reception, which I thought was, I was so sad I saw it like the night before closing, because it was one of those shows where I wanted to tell everybody they had to go at here. And that was a moment where I started going, well, you know, Ishmael says he does choreographic work. And I'm going, well, yeah, but...
Yeah, what?
Yeah, but it's not, tell me about that. What is choreography to you? When you say you do choreographic work?
I put human bodies in time and space.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I do.
And the voices of those human bodies?
Voice is part of the body.
Okay, there you go. Okay. And we also have the connection with Latin America, because you've spent time in Nicaragua, right?
Yeah.
Quite a bit, actually.
A couple of months.
Can you say something about those connections, and also Venezuela? Those are the two places I know.
Yeah, well, Venezuela was David Zambrano invited me down for a festival. He's Venezuelan, and he lives in Europe now, but it was that he brought a lot of his downtown cohorts there. And then Jennifer Miller did another project in northern Venezuela. But Nicaragua was during the war with the Contras, and I was sort of on the other side.
Good.
Yeah. I went down once as a member of a delegation of theater artists,
Yeah.
and we were like being chauffeured around and like the Sandinista bigwigs like Daniel Ortega or like, wining and dining us or rumming and dining us basically. And we were staying in this nice hotel, and it was like really kind. But I really wanted to go down because I really got sort of jazzed up by the just by the light there and the theater work there. There was a director, Jeanette Harkin, who passed away shortly after I met her, and Alan Bolt,
Oh, of course, yeah.
who was like a major Nicaraguan theater artist. So I wanted to go back. So the next year, in '84, it was the day after I won my first Bessie, I flew down to Managua. I had a couple of contacts, but I didn't really know anybody really. I got a room in a rooming house and went to the University of Central America, and I said, I'm here. Can I teach some classes? And it was since it was during the war, like everybody was a soldier at the time. So a lot of my students would arrive in their fatigues. They'd change out of their fatigues and into their dance clothes, put their rifles against the wall, and I would teach them contact improvisation. It was one of the dumbest things I've done, but.
Yeah, it's so there are many facets here to putting bodies together in time and space.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask one last question, then I want to open it up to others. Periodically I run into you and I say, what are you up to? And you say, well, I'm in semi-retirement. And then the next thing I know, you're performing. And I go, wait, what happened to this? I guess that's
That's a semi.
And so my question is what's on your mind and body now? What are you thinking about doing?
I'm trying desperately. I actually even got money to do it, to write. And I'm a really bad, I'm a really good writer, and I'm a really horrible editor. Because I'm an improviser, like I can just get words out, and this, like Janet said, like automatic writing, fine. Refining it and grammar and making it make sense is not my strong suit. So, so this writing project has sort of shifted a lot. I wanted to write about improvisation because I don't think a lot has been written, not a lot of good things have been written about dance improvisations. So that's how it started. And then I began thinking about the canon of experimental dance and who is in the canon, i.e. Judson, and who is not, everybody else. Particularly everybody else of color,
Yeah.
And so I've been actually interviewing a lot of experimentalists who are people of color. And then that sort of morphed into, like, during these interviews, I talked to a lot of people of a whole generation younger than myself who are doing experimental work. Angie Pittman, Malcolm X. Beggs, Mayfield Brooks, there's a whole cohort of people. Because when I did the first Parallels in 1982, it was like Ralph Beebe, Fred, Blondell, and I were like these sort of outsiders. We were like, we were sort of going against the grain of like what was black dance. And now black dance is so much more deeper and broader. And I really want to focus, so I think the writing now is going to be about sort of this current generation of dancers of color, particularly Africanist dancers of color who are experimentalists. But I know, but I'm really
You
bad.
need an editor.
I need an editor.
Okay.
You want to edit?
We can talk.
Okay.
Okay, that's actually, yeah. Well, okay, we've settled that. I've got something else to do. Yay. Let's open this up to the audience, to everybody out there. Should I give my mics to someone, or do you have one? Okay, well, this can be used. So, questions, comments for Ishmael?
No, good food.
Oh, come on. Oh, stories to tell? Secrets? No? Oh, I see all the performers are like, well, I could tell that one. Dan's already told his, so yeah. Oh, you've got it, great.
Hey, Ishmael.
Hey.
Congratulations. I've said for decades now you are my favorite solo performer of all time. Thank you. When I've seen your stuff, when I saw your stuff in Portland and LA and stuff like that, and I'm used to seeing you doing concerts by yourself or with your mom. And I wonder, over your how often have you put evenings together where it's just you, and how often have you done group things, and how do you morph from one to the other?
I don't know. It's about 50-50. I mean, the last two pieces I've done were not large group, but groups of 7 to 8, 10. Them and the John Byrne variations. So, and then I haven't done so many because I'm old. I don't do solo evenings. I mean, I can't, quite honestly. And, I mean, I do that sort of overture at the beginning of them, which almost kills me. It's 3 minutes long, so it's like, I'm dangerously close to 70 years old, so, yeah. So.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Bob. Hi, Bob.
Hello, Ishmael. Congratulations. You are a really wonderful improviser. That's part of my sense of you. And it's a rather amorphous quality of knowing what is needed at a particular time and space with people. What would you attribute that to?
Lots of drugs, I don't know. I mean, that was actually kind of a serious answer. I mean, I think it's sort of like the culture I grew up in, and it's sort of like mostly like weed and hallucinogens, and just sort of not being totally facetious, like just being open in moments, like meditation, like, the things I would say, and curiosity, like being curious and knowing that, yeah, anything can happen, and you should be ready for anything to happen. You could wind up being a pig farmer in Israel or something, which happened to me. So, but yeah, I think it's like a sense of openness and being ready for anything, and and like, I think the hallucinogens did help that, actually.
Any other questions, comments? Margaret?
So I was curious, also in that talk, the talk that I saw that you did at the New School, you mentioned when you were trying out different things, and you went to Arthur Hall and you were doing some work there, but then you started doing these jams. And then you commented that your narrative self wanted something a little more structured,
Right.
I guess, yeah. So could you talk about that transition?
Yeah. Also, you said that I went to the Eric Hawkins studio. I had an Eric Hawkins teacher, but I never went to the studio. Just clarification.
Sorry, no, thank you, no.
No, Helmut Gottschall was her. I don't know if it was just sort of, I was in my 20s, and it was sort of a natural progression. I was in Philadelphia, and I was trying out things. I mean, the classes at Arthur Hall, Afro-American Dance Ensemble, were really important, and like really kinesthetic and sort of culturally rich. I was also taking Horton classes from Joan Kerr. I took more than one. But she was yeah, I did, Emily. I was really bad. I took one semester of ballet at Temple, also not good. So I sort of found improvisation because I was always the person, when people were going across the floor, I was always the person in the corners trying to learn the combination, because I'm really bad at learning set steps. I was never any good at it. And the more I became not good at it, the more I decided to I wasn't interested in it. And I was interested in moving, I was interested in sweating, I was interested in kinesthetics. So I got into improvisation that way. And then I was working with this woman, Terry Fox, and a musician, Jeff Kane, in Philly, and we were basically doing just improv, and just doing these improv jams, and then we'd get a date at the Painted Bride, and do a show. The show consisted of showing up and doing what we did. But then that felt limiting. It felt like I had more, I'm a writer, and I came from acting, and I wanted to say more, so I just began structuring the improv more. So it was a natural, very organic shift from one thing to the other. But I'm a horrible technician. It was like really, really, really bad. So it led seamlessly into improvisation.
Thank you. Yeah. Is there one more question? Oh.
Somebody else.
No,
I won't take it up.
Then we'll
Eat.
eat and drink.
So what, so you've said various times now, and it's been said about you that you started as a theater practitioner.
I was in high school.
But the whole thing of writing and all this, what made you go from being a typical theater person, whatever that is, to you?
It's really good finding out what you're really bad at. In addition to not being able to learn steps and learn set choreography, I also am really bad at memorizing lines. Thanks, Dan. And when I was a junior in high school, 16, my good friend Susan Lurie, who just retired from the dance department at Wesleyan, said, I grew up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is not sort of a cultural backwater. And she said the Harrisburg Community Theater was having free dance classes for teenagers, which I was one. And I had never considered it, but I liked Susan. We were like pals and cohorts, so I went, and it was amazing. And it was like, I was never in sports, but I was really I liked physicality. And it was like, I can sweat without having a ball involved, And I was hooked, and I did a recital, it was like to the Peter Gunn theme, it was very jazzy. and then I went to school as an English major. I went to college as an English major to a school that didn't have a dance department, and then I did become a pig farmer in Israel for a while, which will remain.
I don't know. I think maybe on a pig farming note, we will end. Goats and pigs, there's a connection.
Yeah, there is a
too.
connection. I realized when I did them, because I did work in a slaughterhouse, and that is sort of a connection there.
Yeah.
What's the market for pigs in Israel?
They're very, very profitable. Extremely so. The kibbutz I was on made most of their money because Air Force lieutenants loved them some pork.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Okay.
On the note of pork,
Yes.
to get to the reception, you'll go out where you came, but then hang a right at the elevators. We're taking the elevators up to the 3rd floor, and then there are signs on the 3rd floor. It's 3111. And we'd be delighted if you would all join us in continuing the celebration at our reception.
And thank you, everyone, and
Thank you.
thank you,
Thank you.
Ishmael.
Thank you.